So the Vanderlei Silva fight, why was it a light heavyweight? He
wanted
to fight at light heavyweight?
He wanted it light heavyweight.
Well, he's got issues of his own, of course. Vanderlei Silva, who was an all-time great. I mean, in Pride, long-time Pride, what they call middleweight champion, which was 203 pounds in Pride, which is light heavyweight in UFC, and most likely juice to the tits. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, everybody in Pride was there was a lot of people in Pride doing a lot of crazy shit. You talk to Ensign Inoue, and Ensign Inoue said that they literally had a clause in the contract in Pride saying that they would not test you for steroids.
Yeah, and this has been a subject that for me, especially in the last year, it's one of those subjects where I get emotional, and then my initial instinct is to speak with emotion and then regret what I say afterwards when I calm down. And so it showed an ugly side of me that I'm not necessarily proud of, and I've sat back and looked at more perspective on the whole situation. And not that I still don't condemn it, but when you look at a guy's career, I hate seeing guys like a Vanderlei, like a Kung Lee, go out with something that happened towards the end of their career that caused a black eye on it and then have it ruin the entire body of work that they performed.
It's widely understood that, especially in the early days of the UFC, in the early days of Pride, there were a gigantic amount of guys who were taking performance-enhancing drugs. I have a friend, I will not name names, he fought for a Japanese organization, and they not only did they tell him to do steroids, they wanted him to fight at a higher weight class. They were going to help him set everything up, and they were even picking opponents for him that he can beat. And they were setting the whole thing up. So like when you know about that from the inside, and like the organization telling the guy to take steroids, letting them know that it's okay, we're not going to test you for that. That it had to be a major part of MMA in the early days. Now those guys that came from those days, now they have to adjust. Because, like, you're looking at Vitor, who was on testosterone replacement therapy, had those incredible victories over Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping, and, now and Dan Henderson, and now those fights, not only they come into question, like, you got to go, man, what does he have left now that he's off that stuff? And now he's got to fight with natural testosterone levels, and he's going to fight Chris Weidman for the title. We're going to find out.
Yeah.
We're going to find out next month.
I think he just passed his most recent. I mean, they've been testing him quite often. I think he just passed his most recent test, and absolutely right. We're going to find out. And the whole TRT ruling, thank God it's gone, because it just clouded the issue, I think, and gave, at times, the sport a black eye. And not only the sport, but then it kind of screwed over some fighters, too. If you're going to allow something, then guys are going to do it.
But isn't it true, though? I mean, some of these guys that are Hall of Fame type guys, Hall of Fame caliber guys, most likely were cheating their entire careers. I mean, there's a big percentage of guys who you could point a finger at, especially guys that are fighting in Japan. And if you talk to the guys who fought in Japan, they will tell you that, yeah, this is what was going on. Mark Coleman told me he went backstage and he saw Vanderlei oiling up his body. He saw him oil. He's like, what the fuck you doing, man? You can't do that. They were oiling up so that nobody could take him down. It was a
circus back then, man. And that organization was an absolute circus. And for people that are listening, it is light years different in the UFC.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that was an absolute circus back then.
Well, they let fighters fight like fights that should have never taken place. Like, how about Bob Sapp, 375 pounds, fought Tamura, which was like 185, right?
Anything, I mean, literally, if they could have put a tiger in there with a human being, they knew they would have made money off that. And they would have absolutely done that. If they could find a way to not go to jail afterwards, they would have done it.
Yeah, they put together some fucking ridiculous shows. What about Hongman Choi versus Fedor? Remember that?
I mean,
Hongman Choi was like 7 feet tall. He weighed 300, who knows what the fuck pounds. He was a legitimate giant.
He absolutely, with less athleticism in his body than my 5-year-old daughter.
Yeah, well, the poor guy was like, his bones probably weighed as much as his fucking table. I mean, he was a mess. I mean, physically, he had a fucking tumor in his pituitary gland.